just wanted to say welcome to Salford. I wondered if your impression of Salford was the top image. And I'm rather hoping now you've seen the bottom image, you're maybe going away with a different impression of Salford. It's not the sexiest sounding place in the world, but there are a lot of positives about Salford. We had the world's first free public library. We had the first gaslit streets, and that was quite a long time ago. Obviously, we're now the home of the BBC. You've probably seen that yourselves when you're watching television, that they're transmitting from here. Emmeline Pankhurst from here. Marx and Engels spent a long time here, not just in the Crescent pub down the road, but they did a massive study in this area. Walter Greenwood, does anybody know who Walter Greenwood is? Who's prepared? Who wants to do that? He wrote Love on the Dole, started that era, that genre of literature. Peter Hook. Someone's got to know who Peter Hook is.
New Order.
Thank you. Started the Manchester music scene, which is still going. Paul Scholes, yeah. Peter Maxwell, composer. James Prescott Joule, The Scientist. And of course we've got the University of Salford Media City campus here, which is where you are today. Our main campus is about a mile away. This is the new building. For those of you who went on the tour, sorry you already know this, but this has been open since last September. So it's a very new building. Obviously lots of media production students here, but we've got quite a lot of computer scientists, animation students as well. And you'll see some of the work concurrently, that's running concurrently at the moment. Sound Lab, the big egg and the tiles at the front is showing some of the work there. Okay, so just to mention the agenda for today, we've got Sue doing the keynote this morning. Then we've put some long breaks in. One of the features that you've fed back to us in the past is that you like the networking opportunities. So we've put long breaks in so that you can network and liaise with each other and share experiences and thoughts. Basically today you will be in this room now and at the end of the day for the two keynotes, and then all the parallel sessions are up on the second floor in close proximity to each other. The coffee and the lunches will be back downstairs, so we try to minimise the walking between areas. I think that's it. Yeah. So, I'll just introduce you. I'm going to hand you over to Sue Beckingham now. Sue is from Sheffield Hallam University. She's the educational developer there in the Faculty of Arts, Science and Computer Science, quite a mixture. Sue is massively passionate about social media, and I'm sure we'll see that in the presentation. She's doing a lot of research on the subject as well, and is currently doing 2 masters. So I'll hand over to Sue.
To be here. And as I said, yes, very, very passionate about social media. And it's something that's developed actually over the course of a couple of years that was my personal interests kind of led into looking at how we can use that for employability, for student employability. So just to start off with, I just want you to consider what it is that we actually do. My role is an educational developer and not a learning technologist, but I work very closely with learning technologists and e-learning people. And the key thing that we actually do is to support others. We support them in learning new things, keeping up to date with changes in the sector, and also horizon scanning for things that are new. But what we don't do so much very often is think about how we develop ourselves. And what I want to talk about really is the concept of moving sort of within the things that we might learn within our teams, obviously we're learning from each other. If somebody learns something new, we're going to share that within your teams. But it's about how we can use social networks to develop ourselves. And this concept of a personal learning network, where a PLN, as it's quite often spoke about, it's about social learning that you can do inside using some of the tools, social media tools, to create a personal learning network. So just to get a bit of a feel, how many people use Facebook? Not necessarily for, this could be either personal or work, it doesn't have to be sort of in professional. It's about Twitter. LinkedIn? Google Plus? Let's say. About Pinterest? That's my new question. I struggled actually for a couple of weeks before I actually got into Pinterest, thinking, what on earth am I going to do with this? Which I know is the wrong way around to do things, but I thought, well, so many people are on there, it's got to be good. And I wasn't planning a wedding, and I didn't really want to sort of talk about my cooking recipes, and I wasn't doing up a house, sort of gather photographs that way. And then it suddenly occurred to me that I actually like to collect infographics, particularly social media infographics, or things related to technology and enhanced learning. I'm quite a visual, I'm a very visual person. So gathering data in an infographic poster to me is absolutely fantastic. So I can gather that data without having to read reams and reams of information. I can always look at the detail if I need to. So that's what I collect on my Pinterest boards. So what's a team? A team is a small number of people with complementary skills who are committed to a common purpose, set of performance goals and approach for which they hold themselves mutually accountable. And the things that we do in teams, it tends to be sort of staff development is sort of hierarchical. You know, it's cascaded down the things that you're asked to do, and you might be asked to go on courses, etc. And I just want to sort of think about how do we actually sort of share that information with each other. And in the old days, if you got messages back, you know, this is even before email, there would be the telephone, and we're filling masses. I don't know whether people remember things like memos that you used to have to hand fill, or sometimes they were typed up and passed round. And that's how information got cascaded around. And then now, obviously, the telephone is still there. The duplicate, triplicate, quadruple email, that's the Outlook. We're all inundated with email, I'm sure you'll agree. I've never managed, despite the fantastic training courses that we've had at Sheffield Hallam, never managed to turn my inbox. We also might use Blackboard. SharePoint is a great place for sharing information. Not one of our favourites, but it is good for organising things. And of course the staff intranet. The staff intranet, we even struggle with that. It's full of fantastic information, but we don't actually have a very effective search tool to find information out there. So you can't find out what people are actually doing. What are your peers doing? What are your peers outside of your team? Within your institution, what things are going on that you can learn from each other? So some of the social ways to share within teams and institutions that are happening now is Twitter. Certainly in our institution, it's really taken off in the last, I would say, just 6 months maybe, where even the staff canteens have got offers now promoting what they've got sort of on offer that day, you know, free bread and butter with fish and chips on Friday, that kind of thing. But also sort of the IT people are actually sending out messages, want to share really information, really informative and useful snippets about time-saving skills. But also the systems are down, sending out messages that way as well. So people that are on Twitter can pick up these messages and retweet them. And as you're probably aware, and if you're not on Twitter, that ability to retweet and cascade information out is really, really powerful. If you send it out to your followers, they send it out to theirs, and it's that ripple effect that's really useful. A lot of different departments now are setting up WordPress blogs, so they're setting up newsletters. And the nice thing about that, although it's a little bit slow to get going, it has the potential for people to comment within any post. So you can start to get feedback, so the information that you're giving out, you can get that back. So if people have been away and done something really exciting that they might want to share that you'd learn from, that's a great way to cascade information. Google Docs has been used more this year than perhaps before. YouTube, another great way of sending out information, and also in place of the face-to-face kind of training sessions that you might normally have delivered, still on a wide scale. Certainly in my areas as an educational developer, I do sort of staff development events for the academics. And it's really hard to get the right time, the right dates, and get the people there. There's this great enthusiasm to come to things. But when it comes to, you've only got like half a dozen people turning up if you're looking like three or four. So you feel that you've then got to repeat it and it's not really effective. So trying to move towards actually sort of recording some of those things, whether they're screencasts or videos, so they can actually be saved and uploaded onto YouTube, is becoming even more popular. Things like Adobe Connect, Blackboard Collaborate. Blackboard Collaborate we haven't quite got yet. We've got a business case in there and crossing the fingers that we have it because it's an absolute must. Will give us the opportunity not just to use that with students but also with staff, so that we can actually do sessions, we can do live webinars and have that chat facility in there so people can sort of engage with it, and also they can be recorded and people can watch them afterwards, so if you can't get on a date, it's that backup. The other thing that we've been experimenting with possibly for about 2 years now is Yammer. Does anybody else use that at their institution? Is it effective?
It's getting there. It's taken a little bit of inertia. People still very much on the mindset of using emails and using Messenger and copying everybody everywhere. Really. It's gathering some momentum now.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, and that's one of the things that I think it could be really useful for. When you start these discussions, you send an email out and people reply all, and then somebody doesn't reply all, but they reply to some, and you've got this cascading information that's all disjointed all over the place. Whereas in Yammer, if people aren't familiar with it, it's a social networking site, so it has a conversation stream, just as you would see in Google Plus or in Facebook, that kind of thing. So somebody can ask a question, they can talk about something, they can attach a document, they can attach a link to a video, whatever it is, they can share something. And then the conversation streams after that keep together, so you get that sort of staged approach, and that's really useful sort of to keep those conversations together. You can also set up groups within there, so if you wanted to have one for your own team, or a special interest group, for example, you could do that, and then you invite those people in. So it's kind of walled really to just people within your institution. So for mine, the email address is stu.ac.uk, so only people with that email address can use it. So it's fairly safe. I think the paid version you get more extra add-ons to it, and that sort of makes it even more private. It's certainly something worth considering. So this is some information. It's not empirical research. This is an infographic, but the data has come from places like Gartner and Pew. And it's just to give a little bit of flavour of some findings about when they've been thinking about social media institutions. So some of the things that they were saying there is that in most cases, company knowledge is in people's heads. If somebody leaves, they might be the font of all knowledge of a particular area. If they retire or they leave and go on somewhere else, that week or month or however long they've got before they go, how do they cascade that information out so quickly? You kind of lose that information. People searching for knowledge via the internet that's also available in the company. Well, yes, I do, because the search mechanism within our staff intranet is absolutely rubbish. So sometimes I can find it better through Google than actually through the staff intranet, but that's not very good. We know that meetings aren't always productive. Some people are sort of across campuses, you're spending a lot of time. Are face-to-face meetings always the most productive way of getting together, or could we use social media tools to replace those? There's a lot more people on LinkedIn. There's a lot of work, I think, to do with LinkedIn. That's certainly an area that I've been doing a lot of looking at and giving talks about, both to students and academics and different conferences. And I could talk for an hour just about LinkedIn, to be quite honest, but people maximising the use of their profiles and making those look as they should do to the outside world. So reasons you might want to introduce internal social media tools. Well, finding colleagues and letting them connect, certainly in places like Yammer, or even on LinkedIn, you can set up groups, you can bring people together, introduce them, welcome them into the group, which is really nice. It's a good way of keeping people up to date. It's a nice way to capture informal knowledge and information. But sometimes you don't think to do that with email. It might be a chance conversation if you're both getting a cup of coffee as you go to the cafe, or if you've gone into the shared kitchen or something like that. But you don't normally sort of broadcast it out by email to everybody. But if it's put on a social media site, it means that those people that are reading can pick it up. You know, they can choose to do with it what they will. And I guess it's a modern way of working. It has the potential to decrease the amount of email, as we spoke about before. And I think it's just preparation. It's the life skills that we need now. Social media is not a fad. It's not going away as much as some people would like it to. And I think the more people get used to using this in a safe environment, the easier they're going to find doing it externally. So that preparation, I think, is really key. And certainly the conversation I had coming away from a conference a few weeks ago was a lady who, she's just completed a doctorate, she publishes widely, she writes for England, but she said, I don't know what to write for social media tools. She's just got into Twitter. I don't know what to write. So it's understanding what the purpose is, and I think it's quite important to encourage people that coming into social media, that lurking is actually alright. It's really good to sort of shadow other people, find out what they're doing, put your toes in the water, as it were, and sort of get used to it, you know, and not to be frightened about it. Also, from my perspective, that if I see new people that are coming into it, you know, encouraging them to actually contribute is quite a nice thing to do as well. So just out of this, their research brought up some of the features that people particularly said that they liked. Microblogging, like Twitter, is really useful, and they wanted space for groups. Not so many people using a wiki, but certainly they like to be able to use videos and images. So just a few more things that came out of that. I'll let you just have a quick read through. And another infographic, the top time wasters at work, trying to contact customers and colleagues, trying to find key information, duplicating communications, attempting to schedule meetings. This is a tricky one. I know certainly when I'm trying to organise events, you know, trying to look through people's diaries, you know, we use Outlook, then find actually that the academics come back to me and say, we don't use Outlook. Well, I'm never going to find an empty space in the diaries and bring everybody together. It's quite important. And there are a lot of unwanted communications with email. I think it'd be nice to sort of reduce the sort of volume that we get down if it is for this solution. So just to sum up some of the benefits there, it can help people connect with each other, easily update your colleagues, an opportunity to share knowledge and experience, an opportunity to collaborate or ask for opportunities to collaborate, come up with ideas where you might want to collaborate, and learn efficiently, so putting on sessions so that you could actually do that in a more efficient manner, time-wise as much as anything else. So looking beyond the team and going on into a network, it's not to consider what we think a network is. And I'm not meaning the sort of techie kind of network. And this is just a quote from, again, a network is a larger, informal, loosely defined group of people with various types of expertise who weigh in to solve different types of problems. So this is thinking beyond your team. How could you sort of connect with other people? So just to go through some of the benefits, Anklam actually put this in a book called Network, so I'm just going to read through some of these quotes because I think they're quite important. And the first one is access to information, knowledge and experience. And I think the more you can do that within a network, the better. So the goal is to be able to actually share things and people get those things at their point of need. So they choose to sort of take on that knowledge when it's important for them, rather than sort of giving lots of information out and it not actually be relevant at the time. So next one, resiliency. The ability to survive and thrive in the face of change. I think networks allow you to connect with other people. You actually find out that people are going through similar things, and it may not necessarily be in your institution. You can find out from other people, actually, that's happening to them. This went well, this didn't go so well. And I think that's really nice, because then you can sort of start that dialogue with people and actually learn from each other. You may be able to support them, they may be able to support you. Credibility. Once you start engaging with social networks in particular, and I think Twitter, is the ability to sort of start to let other people know that you may be knowledgeable in a certain area. You know, it may be that you're looking at other people as knowledge leaders, but after a while you could actually be one of those, so you're sharing information out with them, and that's really good for you. Reach, clearly within networks there's a potential to enhance individual status, but it's just the reach that you can get out to, I think, that's particularly important. Diffusion of knowledge and innovation. Networks, and of course networks don't have to just be online, networks are face-to-face as well, and they're just as important, equally as important. But the electronic communication provides a really good way to transmit learning to a wider people. You know, demographics doesn't matter, distance doesn't matter, time doesn't matter, because people can pick these messages up 24/7. You know, it doesn't mean to say that they have to be sort of synchronous, it can be asynchronous, they can pick that up. And finally, collective intelligence. So working collaboratively, it means that you can bring in experts from different areas and learn from them, so you can bring something together that you couldn't actually do just by yourself. This is just something from networks, and just kind of bringing together some of the points within the book. It's a really good book to have a look at, to be honest. And of course, designing networks can be done in lots of different ways, and they can be designed for you, or you can design your own. And what I want to get to next is what you designing your own networks, not sort of driven by either your team leader, your boss, your institution. And outcomes can be determined by your bosses, but also I think the discovery of actually finding information yourself is quite empowering. So you can choose to do that. So what does a social network look like? This is an example from Alec Chorus. He's done it as a typical teacher network, but I think we can sort of take some information from this visual here. Is that we can draw and create a network from gathering information, as in physical information. We can do it through our colleagues. We can do it through media. I don't need to tell you that you can go on YouTube and find anything about anything how-tos on YouTube now. In fact, it's the second biggest search engine. And yet, I still speak to people, and they've never used YouTube. And I question, I said, well, you haven't uploaded video to YouTube? No, I've never looked at YouTube. And I find it quite startling, really, that in this stage, that people haven't sort of found the benefits from it. But that's something to remember. Not everybody's at the same starting place. We're all at different starting places, and we need to be mindful that there are actually people who haven't even got to the starting point, haven't even got to in the water at all. And of course, there's lots of digital resources, and we can also reach out to family and the local community. And of course, there's the social networking, which I think is an important part. Certainly at the end of conferences and events, the bit of the glass of wine at the end is always very empowering and useful. More deals get done at that point of the conference and throughout the day. So any kind of social networking is good. But what I'm getting to really is that people's network, what their network is going to look like, is going to be completely individual. And I could go into massive detail about what my network looks like, how I've developed it, and I'll touch on it in a short while. Actually, it's personal to each and every one of you, because you'll all be looking for different things. You'll all be wanting to develop in different ways. You'll all be looking for different types of information. This is a visualisation of what my LinkedIn connections look like. Using something called Index at LinkedIn Labs, you can actually gather information from your LinkedIn profile and create this interactive connections visual. And these little nodes, as you click on them, it actually brings up the visuals of the actual people that I'm connected to. And what it does, it collects them into different groups for you, which you can then label as you want to. So it gathers people in like groups. And that's really interesting to find out who your connections are connected to. And I find it quite fascinating playing about with it. It's worth a look. Because I have quite a number of colleagues now in America, in the US. I went out on a research study tour looking at how they use social media with student affairs professionals. And that's kind of cascaded out, and I've sort of got to know lots of other people through that. So it's quite interesting to see how those groups and how the connections over there are actually connected with people here in the UK. This is something called Times Explorer. I don't know if anybody knows Martin Hawksley. He creates these. In fact, he's actually done a user guide now so people can create this. And this is brings together the tags. If people are using a hashtag for a conference, this particular one was the AUA conference a couple of weeks ago, the Association of University Administrators, and they've finally got into using Twitter this year. Last year there was probably only about half a dozen people, there was a lot more this year. And this is just a visualisation of the connections of people tweeting, and then you can click on top tweeters, hashtags, top conversationalists, which is quite an interesting way to visualise how people connect. So the impact of connectivity on individuals, according to Einstein, clearly there may be individual improved performance, it may improve organisational performance, business performance, but it also improves social capital. And social capital refers to the collective value of all social networks, who people know, and the inclinations that arise from these networks to do things for each other, the norms of, I still can't say this, reciprocity. And that's something that you need to think about, I think, with social media, because if you go out asking for lots of things, people are going to get really fed up with you. What you tend to find is that if you give out information, if you help people, after a while you find that people start coming back to you, and that starts to pay off. And it takes time, but it's something that you have to build. And thinking of a giving and a sharing, so sharing information out for no reason other than actually, this could be useful to a lot more people. The social capital, another definition, is the stock of active connections among people, the trust, the mutual understanding, and shared values and behaviours that bind the members of human networks and communities and make cooperative action possible. And that's something that we're seeing in the news quite often. People are coming together in massive groups, and it's the power of the people that's making changes. And that's through social media, because technology is giving the ability for people to come together, and that's the power of it, really. And Putman says the central premise of social capital is that social networks have value. And this book, Rolling Alone, what he's talking about in there is the changes. This was back in 2000, so through social media, but what he was actually saying in this book is in America there's been a stark change in the way people are networking. He was talking about a bowling club, just as one example, that had been running for years and years and years and years, and suddenly stopped, lost people. So the book talks about how people are changing the way they do things. They're not eating together, they're not socialising together, and this is back in 2000. But what I think we've got now with social media is bringing that back again. It's bringing the capabilities to bring people together. And certainly I'm in touch now, and just thinking about Facebook, people that I've got back in touch with from school, relatives that are abroad, relatives of relatives that are abroad, that we've got to know, we've seen the photographs and we've shared things. And I'm quite conservative on Facebook. I don't let anybody come into that. It's quite sort of tight and keep it very private. But it's been really, really useful to sort of bring those connections back to the fore. And Freeman talks about the last 20 years were about forging, sharpening and distributing all the new tools to collaborate and connect. Now the real information revolution is about to begin. And for some it's already begun. I think while social media is really, really useful and powerful, it's also important that we maintain the links face to face. And certainly time after time I've gone to events and met people for the first time face to face, and I feel that I actually already know them because we've sort of had these dialogues over the course of time using social media, whether that's Twitter, predominantly probably Twitter, but also through LinkedIn. So what's learning? I came across this on something called Toon-Do, which is you can create little cartoon strips, but it just caught my eye, and I decided to put this in here. Because learning is lots of different things for various different people, and we could talk about for ages whether we're referring to formal learning, informal opportunities for formal learning, fun learning. I learn all sorts of different things with social media. There's a lot of serendipity about it. You just sort of go in and you find something out. It's like, goodness gracious, that's really interesting, and cascade that out if you feel it's suitable to some or all of your followers. There's lots of different types of ways that we learn, and lots of reasons why we might want to learn things for our particular roles and our jobs. But I think it's also important that we need to sort of think about the fun and the creative ways that we can actually learn. And if you think back to children are learning all the time, and they very often, or most of the time, they're learning through play. They do different things and they think about it, and then they reinvent it, they see something else, and they play make-believe. And I think we need to think a bit more about sort of enjoying learning and playing with things. And if they don't work out, it doesn't matter. So trying new tools, social media tools. Don't worry too much about it. It may not be right for you, that particular tool. Somebody might tell you that it's absolutely brilliant, but you've got to try it out. And it's a nice and safe environment to do so. So how can we widen our connections? Well, we don't need to send out a message in a bottle. tools, and I've taken another one from Alex for us. And this brings in some of the social media tools, bearing in mind this is 4 years old now, so when he's talking about the use of blogs and wikis, video conferences, he talks about that. Webinars, of course, have become very, very popular now, and are becoming easier to do. And I think that's one of the interesting things about social media. You don't need to be reliant on the techie people. I rely heavily on my colleagues that are learning technologists, and they help me a lot, but actually it's quite empowering to be able to do things myself. And some of the social media tools, a lot of the social media tools are allowing that to happen. It's a bit strange. But these are just examples of sharing tools, and one of the things that social media does now, a lot of people are putting onto their websites, their blogs, are sharing tools. So at a click of a button, you can actually share it out to your Twitter followers. You can collect, you can send it out to LinkedIn, to Dig, Facebook. You can like pages, images. Now I've got the little shortcut on my browser, so I can just pin images. I just click on that. It finds the image within the website or the blog, and I can pin it to my boards, and it's really quick and easy. But there is the worry that with all of that, is it information saturation? Are we getting too much information? How are we going to deal with that? And this is a nice image, and it kind of just sort of typifies really sort of in an internet minute all of the things that happen. 100,000 new tweets will happen, 3,000 photo uploads, 47,000 app downloads, 20 new victims of identity theft, 6 million Facebook views, and so it goes on. And that's happening because there's all of that information out there. So Arthur C. Clarke said, the information age offers much to mankind, and I would like to think that we will rise to the challenge it presents. So he's hoping humanity will survive this information deluge. But he says it's vital to remember that information in the sense of raw data is not knowledge, that knowledge is not wisdom, that wisdom is not foresight. Information is the first essential step to all of these. So there's all that fantastic information, but unless you're going to do something meaningful with it, it's actually not really much use. Of course, such concerns about information are not new, and this is a quote from 1755. So just read it out. As long as the centuries continue to unfold, the number of books will grow continually, and one can predict that a time will come when it will be almost as difficult to learn anything from books as a direct study of the whole universe. It will be almost as convenient to search for some bit of truth concealed in nature as it will be to find it hidden away in an immense multitude of bound volumes. And this is when everybody was against books. And then we got the Dewey Decimal System to organise libraries, and everything got sort of more easy to sort of catalogue and find information. But back then there was a real fear. You'd never be able to find anything. There's far too much. It needs to stop. But Clay Shirky says it's not information overload, it's a case of filter failure. And I think it's that organisation of information that's the key thing. So one of the things you need to look at is your mavens. Mavens are information specialists or people we rely upon. So those people that are your knowledge experts, they're the people to follow. And certainly that's something that I do with Twitter. There's some key people that I particularly used to and still follow, but they were my sort of guiding light, if you like. And then I started to look at who they were following, who was following them, and kind of build your network of people that are sharing information that's useful to you. So I know a lot of people use Twitter to follow sports. I'm not interested in sport at all, so having that in my feed and people retweeting about that isn't sort of particularly interesting for me. So I can sort of turn a blind eye to that and focus in on the bits that are interesting and useful. And again, Keisha talks about users as producers in the terms of, yes, there's a lot of stuff out there that is possibly irritating, annoying, might not be useful, may be useful, it's all down to the individual. So yeah, there's lots of cat videos and cat photos and this, that and the other on there. But in actual fact, that's a sandpit area for people to try, to upload information, to create things in a sort of selfish environment in terms of it doesn't really matter, you know, if people don't like it, you know, don't look at it. But then what it does lead to is that this sort of mass of shared knowledge and experience means that things like Pusha Hidi, a platform, can evolve. It changes to the civic view of the world. And this is where country now, but they created a website to place hotspots where atrocities were going on during the war. And things like these are happening all the time. People have been able to put their voice into it using mobile phones. So even in areas where things are being switched off, thinking about the atrocities happening in Burma, people are taking mobile videos and getting out to the world so people can find out information, real information. So social and participatory media offer new ways for anyone to communicate and collaborate. And I added the anyone in from Romney Knowles' quote there. And I think it's really empowering because anybody can have a go. Anybody that's got access to the internet, you know, there's so many free things, you know, there isn't cost things to restrict people. Obviously it's the access, and there's still people clear that don't have access, but those that do, you know, can have a go. So very quickly, I'm just going to sort of have a quick skim through some of the social media tools that I've been using, and the reasons why really. LinkedIn, I think is immensely powerful and very useful. It's certainly been useful for me and giving me opportunities to connect with lots of people. But it's also given me invitations. Somebody that I connected with on Twitter and then invited me to connect on LinkedIn. He was a lecturer and then he'd gone into social media for business. He got a search engine optimization company, and he connected with me and said, if you want to come down to this conference, we're doing a conference down in London, social media for business, come along free. I know you're in education and it's really tricky sort of, you know, trying to get funds, but you can get down there, come along. And that was a couple of years ago now, it was 2009, but I learned so much from that opportunity. Joining groups, you can learn from various different people. Again, the specialisms are, you know, down to you and what you're interested in. Using SlideShare, does anybody put the slides up onto LinkedIn using the SlideShare tool? Again, that's provided opportunities. I got invited to speak at FOTI last year, or FOTI, depending on how people pronounce it, the Future of Technology in Education Conference. And that was based on a few tweets from me saying that I'd like to go along to that conference. Hope I managed to get a place because it's a free conference, but you've got to get in quick on Twitter. And he's seen some of the presentations that I've been doing about social media and employability, and said he'd like me to come on to speak, which was a great opportunity. And of course, following people's events, you know, you can find out what's going on. Twitter, one thing that I do recommend to people, and to also, if you do it, if you don't do it, do it, and that's to create lists. If you do it, share that information with other people, because lots don't know. They don't put things into lists, and they get all this stuff coming through the Twitter, and it's no wonder that they're overwhelmed. Creating lists, and also looking at what other people's lists are, and possibly following them if their interest is useful. It's a great search facility for finding things out. You can search by hashtags or keywords, and also using dashboards. How many people use something like Hootsuite or Twitter? Not too many. But if you've got things organised into lists, it means that you can look at your Twitter streams in columns. It organises it for you, which is really great. One of the interesting ones that's just come out now is it's called Bottlenose. Has anybody seen this one? I quite like this because it's the visual. It actually creates this on the side, so I can sort of click on and following hashtag for the conference today, and it starts to bring up a visualisation of who's talking about that, starting from the hashtag right in the middle, and it brings up then the associated tweets with it. So you can tailor that as a plus sign down the bottom, so you can create your own groups and make that suit your needs. But that's worth a look, and that's bottlenose.com. Because blogs are really interesting. Learn lots from reading other people's blogs, commenting on blogs, and sort of having that dialogue, creating my own blog, curating. There's lots of different things like Storyfy and Scoopit and lots of social media tools where you can create and curate information, and that's quite useful to learn more things. And one thing that I do find good for me is to create a private blog as your own reflective space. So creating posts, writing about how you've got on with your own development, and then looking back over that over a couple of months, 6 months and a year. It's amazing how things move on. And you can do that as a private blog, of course. Social bookmarking. Digo Delicious, I'm sure you've heard of those. They've been out for quite a while now. Pearl Trees is another one, which is more of a visualisation one, which is quite nice. And that's a great way for you to consolidate information, but also to share it with other people. You can follow other people's lists, as well as them follow you. So it brings in that social aspect to it. RSS, if you're following blogs, having something like Google Reader is useful. Does anybody use a reader like that, Google Reader? Get on with it? I put user of caution because what I did was I started to add into there every single blog that I came across. But now what I tend to find is when I go into it, I've got thousands of updates waiting, and so my God, this is as bad as email. It completely put me off. So it's that caution there, don't try to take too much. So just for my own organisation, not so much social media, but it brings in the RSS feed, is iGoogle. I have that as a homepage, and I find that quite interesting to keep up to date with the news, etc. And of course, having a mobile phone has been the empowering thing with social media, and having a smartphone has meant that I can access things that people in my spare time, I guess, sort of those in between times when you're on the train, you're on the bus. There's quite often people say to me, how on earth do you have time to keep up with all these different social media streams, etc. And that's how I do it. And I don't think I could have done if I hadn't got, a smartphone. That's kind of empowering, really, because it just means that I can go into it, when I've got those spare 5 minutes. And actually, it's far more interesting doing that than reading the Metro, which is the free newspaper that we get on our bus. So this is just really sort of thinking about the kinds of information. We've gone from a stage where we've received information predominantly through email and getting messages, to then having the web where we're looking at documents, because the web's a series of documents. We shift back to messages again, and it's just getting ourselves organised, really, because it can be overwhelming. Whatever you look at, you can't read everything. I think social media is a bit like you wouldn't expect to drink from fire hydrants. You need to sort of dip into things and take small sips, as it were. You can't read anything. You never, if you did it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're never going to keep up with everything. But it comes back to that serendipity. So don't be worried about that. So this is just a bit of a tongue-in-cheek. Follow the experts. But something that came out at school, be careful about experts, because X, as you are well aware, is unknown, and expert is driven pressure, and put them together, and there are people out there sending out information that claim to be experts, they claim to be social media gurus, they claim to be this, that and the other. You've still got to sort of have a bit of savvy about you to work out. It's like anything, any information. You know, you've got to sift through it and find good stuff. Finally, I think this quote sort of structure really. Everything that needs to be said has already been said. But since no one was listening, everything must be said again. And that's one of the things with Twitter. You know, if you miss it, it's going to come round again. It's a bit like that proverbial stream or the boat that you send sailing in the boating pond. Eventually it will come back to you and you'll get that information again. So there's coping strategies. You can say things as favourites. You can divert them here, there and everywhere. It'll all come back. And equally, you can share things out as well. Don't be frightened that if you've seen something else somebody else would have done now, it doesn't matter. Just send it out again. And that's links to I'm Sue Bex on Twitter, and a link to my LinkedIn profile and my business account and QR code, which I tend to put now on business cards and information, and that always links back to my LinkedIn profile because that tends to have most of the information about me. So I hope that was useful, and I encourage people to think about social media for their own development. Yes, it's going to be good for training to train other people, it's going to be good for the organisation, it's going to be good for your team. Think about you as well. How could it work for you to develop yourself? Great, thank you.
Thank you. That was very informative. There were lots of ideas in there for professional use and personal use, and I can certainly identify with both. I get lots of information from key speakers and key people in the field that way too. Now, we'll just take some questions. Unfortunately, Sue has got to rush off after this, so...
Oh, you were later? Ah, right, sorry, I misunderstood you.
Right, she's not rushing off, because I misunderstood. So there will be opportunities over coffee to ask any questions. But does anybody have any questions at the moment they'd like to ask, or any points they'd like to raise? Craig, you've got one. Just bring the microphone.
Hi sir, I'm Craig. There's two things that you touched on towards the end of your session just then, that from my personal perspective I feel could be perceived as being in conflict with one another. One is curating content, and I know that you were talking about using social media for your own personal learning, but let's just flip that and talk about using social media to facilitate learning for students and for learners. So curating content and then delivering that to students versus developing digital literacies and actually allowing students to recognise the wheat from the chaff and recognise what is good content and not so good content and be able to go through that thought process themselves and make that decision themselves. The question really is where do you place the balance between curating content for learners and allowing them to develop their own digital literacies and not curating content for them?
I think there's benefits in doing both actually, and I think using social media, no matter what way you want to, it's really important that you show people how to do that and give them exemplars. So setting an activity up where you can show them that this is how you've done it and then setting them out to do that task will be absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
I think there's something when I was a peer supported review partner for an academic colleague on a distance learning course, and she used Digo for the first time, so she put marking to it. And one of the things that we have to remember is that people, and they were on a professional communication course, so they were professionals, it was a master's course, but we have to remember that not everybody's savvy with the communication tools, with the technology, and I had to keep going in and saying, well, perhaps we need to sort of sit back and think about this, have some how-to guides, which are quite easy to do now, whether you do that as a screencast or whether you do handouts and do screenshots. So we can't make assumptions that people are going to find things easy, even though we find it easy ourselves. So whatever your activities are, it's got to be kind of scaffolded really. People that know it, you know, they can skim past that, that's absolutely fine, but it's having that scaffolded approach. And I think that's particularly something about students that don't think just because they're, you know, big Facebook users and you know, do all sorts of mobile phone, that they're going to be savvy about sort of digital literacy in totality. We need help there as well.
Okay, did anybody have any questions about the opportunity? I think everybody's ready for a coffee. Okay, thank you again, Sue. Thank you. Okay.